The office always buzzed like a beehive. Fluorescent lights humming above me, keyboards clicking, phones ringing. I remember sitting at my desk, staring at the screen, my coffee going cold, thinking this is it. I'm finally going to prove myself. I had been pouring every ounce of energy into this project. Late nights, skipped weekends, even those mornings where I walked in half asleep but still determined. I believed in the work, I believed in myself, and most of all, I believed in my manager. Steve, he told me things like, "You're the backbone of this team." He smiled in meetings, praised my dedication, clapped me on the back like I was his star. I trusted him, too much maybe. But trust has a way of turning sharp. The first time it happened, I didn't even notice. Steve was presenting in the Monday meeting, walking everyone through the progress of his project. My project, he spoke so smoothly, like it had been his idea all along. I sat there, nodding, clapping, even smiling a little, because I thought maybe he just forgot to mention me. He'll say my name in a second. I told myself, but he never did. I convinced myself it was fine. Just a mistake, nothing worth overthinking. Then it happened again, and again. Every time my name was missing, people in the office started looking at me differently, like I was just there to type notes, like I was the shadow standing behind Steve's brilliance. My chest ached. I would walk to the bathroom, stare in the mirror, and whisper to myself, "Am I invisible? Am I really just a tool for him to shine?" I'd go home at night, drop my bag on the floor, and sit at the kitchen table with my laptop open, scrolling through my drafts, my late-night edits, my files. They all had my fingerprints, my timestamps, my sweat. But in the office, it was like I didn't exist. I wanted to scream at him, to slam my fist on the desk during a meeting and shout, "That's mine." But deep down I knew that would only make me look unprofessional, emotional, like the problem. And if there's one thing corporate life punishes, it's being the problem. I remember one particularly heavy evening. The office was empty, everyone gone, and I was still at my desk, finishing up slides. My phone buzzed with a notification, and I glanced at it, a text from a coworker. "Wow, Steve is really killing it with this project. You must be proud to work under him." Under him, my stomach dropped, my jaw clenched. That was the moment I realized, if I didn't take control, I'd be erased completely. And right when I was drowning in that thought, I reminded myself of something. Hello, my lovely viewers. Welcome back to Voices of Anti-Joy. If you're new here, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss one of my story times. Trust me, you're going to love this one. Because today, I'm telling you how I turned betrayal into power. Saying those words, even in my head, gave me a spark. It was like talking to someone who believed in me. Maybe that's why I'm sharing this with you now, because back then, I needed a voice telling me not to give up. So I went home, dropped into bed, staring at the ceiling in the dark, and I whispered to myself, this isn't over. I am not going to let him write my story for me. This is still my fight. The next morning, I walked into the office with my usual coffee cup in hand, but something inside me had shifted. I was quieter, my smile felt heavier, like it was pinned in place, just to survive the day. Steve passed by my desk, flashing that same easy grin he always wore. And for the first time I saw it for what it really was, a mask. He didn't look at me like a teammate, not like an ally. He looked at me like a resource, like the stapler on his desk, useful, replaceable. That day, he called another meeting. I sat in the corner of the conference room, scribbling notes like I always did. He clicked through the slides, with my graphics, my words, my late-night formatting. This, he said, pointing to the chart, was a tough nut to crack, but I worked it out. I nearly choked on my water, worked it out. I had spent 3 nights crunching that data, going cross-eyed at the screen, praying Excel wouldn't crash on me again. He hadn't even looked at it until I handed him the polished file. And then came the worst part. The director leaned back in her chair, gave him a nod and said, "Impressive work. Steve, you've really stepped up this quarter." My chest went tight, my throat dry. I wanted to stand up and scream. That was me, but I didn't. I just smiled weakly, scribbled another note, and stared at the pen shaking in my hand. Later that afternoon, I ducked into the restroom, locked the stall, and sat there in silence. The air smelled of lemon cleaner, the kind that stings your nose. My heart pounded, and I whispered to myself, maybe they're right, maybe I'm just the assistant, maybe I don't deserve credit. The thought stung so much, I had to bite my lip to stop tears from spilling over. But then, another voice whispered back, sharper, stronger, "No, that's not true. I did this. I built this." That night, I went home and sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open, the screen lighting up my tired face. I pulled up every email thread between me and Steve, every draft file, every document where my name was on the header. I noticed something I had ignored before: timestamps. My fingerprints were everywhere, proof that the work was mine long before it ever hit his desk. And that's when the seed of an idea planted itself. If I couldn't fight him in the open, if speaking up in a meeting would only make me look like a desperate complainer, then maybe I needed a quieter plan. A smarter plan, one that spoke with facts instead of feelings. I started small. Every time I sent him a draft, I CC'd another manager. Not in a loud or suspicious way, just casual. Like, hey, here's an update for Steve. Thought you might want to see progress too. Every time I built a new slide deck, I saved the earlier drafts with dates. I even started sending project updates directly to the team, phrased politely, but making sure my contributions were visible. Was it sneaky? Maybe, but was it survival? Absolutely. Still, the battle wasn't just at work. It was inside me. I would lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, replaying conversations, wondering if I was overreacting, if I was just being sensitive. Part of me wanted to believe Steve still respected me, that maybe he would snap out of it and admit the truth. But another part of me knew better. Some people don't change when they taste power, they only get hungrier. I pressed my palms together and whispered into the dark. If he wants to play games, fine, but I'll play smarter. And with that, the plan to reclaim my story had officially begun. I remember the night it all clicked. The office was quiet, the hum of the printer echoing faintly down the hall. But I wasn't there, I was home. In my tiny kitchen, with my notebook spread open in front of me. The lamplight was dim, casting long shadows across the table. I had written one question across the top of the page. What do I actually want? At first, my pen hovered because I wasn't sure. Did I want to expose Steve, embarrass him, watch him crash and burn? That thought burned bright for a moment. But then it fizzled. No, that wasn't it. I didn't want chaos. I didn't want to be dragged into drama. What I wanted was simple: recognition, respect, dignity. I wanted the truth to stand taller than his lies. So I made a promise to myself. I wouldn't scream. I wouldn't fight in the mud. I would win by being calm, patient, and undeniable. I flipped the page and started writing steps, almost like a general mapping out a battle plan. Step 1, document. Screenshots of emails. Saved drafts with timestamps. Backup copies of everything. Step 2, visibility. No more quietly handing off work for him to polish and claim. I would start copying people in, dropping updates in team channels, politely but firmly making sure my name was attached. Step 3, allies. I couldn't do this alone. I needed people in the office to see me, to remember my face when the work came up. I actually laughed a little as I wrote it out, because it sounded so strategic, like I was planning a heist, but in a way, I wasn't stealing anything, though I was taking back what was already mine. The next day at work, I walked in with my chin a little higher. Steve noticed. You're looking fresh today, he said, sipping his coffee with that fake charming smile. Inside, I wanted to roll my eyes, but I kept it cool. Thanks, I said simply, then sat down and pulled out my laptop. Calm, focused, almost amused. That week, I sent out 3 project updates, CCing 2 managers and a director. Each email was polite, professional, but clear. The drafts came from me. Each document attached carried my name. And when Steve tried to present his latest update in the Friday meeting, something funny happened. One of the managers spoke up and said, "Oh yes, I saw this in the email chain from my name. Nice progress." For the first time, Steve's smile cracked. Just slightly, but I saw it. That small win lit a fire in me. I realized I didn't need to destroy him. I just needed to shine enough that the truth couldn't be ignored. Still, the emotional weight was heavy. I'd get home after long days, kick off my shoes, and collapse onto the couch. Sometimes I'd laugh bitterly, shaking my head at the absurdity of it all. Other times, I'd press my palms against my eyes and whisper, "Why me? Why did someone I trusted choose to treat me like this?" And yet, even in those moments, a stronger voice always rose up. Because this is your lesson. Because you needed to learn that not everyone who praises you has your best interests at heart. Because you're tougher than this. I kept documenting. I kept building allies. I even started dropping hints to HR. Casual questions about processes and credit tracking, just enough to plant seeds. Every day, my plan grew stronger. Every day, my confidence grew, too, and deep down, I knew. The day was coming when all the threads I'd been weaving would come together in a single, undeniable reveal. I didn't know exactly how it would happen, but I knew one thing for sure: Steve's mask was going to crack. And when it did, I'd be standing tall, holding the truth in my hands. The day it finally happened didn't look dramatic from the outside. No storm, no raised voices, no chaos. Just another quarterly review meeting. Fluorescent lights buzzing, a row of senior leaders sitting at the long table, their laptops open, and coffee cups lined up like soldiers. I walked into the room with my notebook in one hand and my laptop tucked under my arm, calm but alert. My heart was beating so loudly I thought everyone could hear it, but my face stayed composed. Steve started the presentation, clicking confidently through the slides. He spoke with his usual charm, taking credit, as if the work had poured straight from his brain. This project, he said, was one of the toughest we've handled, but I managed to streamline the data and create a clear path forward. The director nodded thoughtfully. For a moment, I felt the same sinking in my stomach I had felt so many times before. But this time was different. I wasn't helpless anymore. When he finished, the director turned toward me, almost as a courtesy. Anything to add? She asked. My fingers tightened on my laptop. This is it, I told myself. Stay calm, just the facts. I opened my computer and shared my screen. Yes, I do have something, I said evenly. My voice didn't shake. I pulled up the draft versions of the slides, each one saved with timestamps. I clicked through the email threads, showing when I had sent Steve the files, weeks before he had ever touched them. I didn't look at him. I kept my eyes on the leaders, on the facts. Silence filled the room. It was so quiet I could hear the air conditioning hum. Finally, one of the managers leaned back and said, "That's very clear." Another nodded. Yes, I remember seeing these in the updates. My chest loosened with relief. They saw it, they finally saw it. Steve's smile had vanished. He shifted in his chair, coughed lightly, tried to recover. Well, of course, my name contributed, but the words sounded thin, hollow, too late. The director closed her laptop slowly. Steve, we'll need to have a follow-up conversation about this. That was it, no shouting, no fireworks. Just a simple sentence that carried more weight than anything I could have screamed. I sat there quietly, hands folded in my lap. My breathing steady, I had done it. Not with anger, not with spectacle, but with truth. In the weeks that followed, things shifted fast. Steve was reassigned, his reputation damaged. People who had once overlooked me started greeting me differently, with nods of respect. And then came the moment I had been waiting for, an email from leadership, offering me the promotion I had worked so hard to earn. The night I got the news, I sat at my kitchen table again, the same place where I had once cried and questioned everything. But this time, I wasn't crying. I was smiling, quietly, peacefully. You'd think I would have been dancing on the couch, blasting music in celebration. But honestly, I just felt relief. A deep, bone-level relief that the truth had stood up for me when I finally gave it the chance. I whispered to myself, you did it. You kept your dignity. You proved them wrong without losing yourself. And that was the sweetest revenge of all. Looking back now, I realize something important. Revenge isn't always about tearing someone down. Sometimes it's about standing so tall that the lies collapse under their own weight. It's about boundaries. It's about proving to yourself that you are stronger than betrayal. And maybe, just maybe, it's about compassion too. Because even though Steve hurt me, I couldn't help but feel a little sorry for him. He thought stealing someone else's light would make him shine brighter. But in the end, all it did was expose the darkness he carried. So if you're listening to this story, and you've ever been betrayed, let me remind you, you don't need to fight dirty to win. You just need to stay true to yourself. Document the truth, and let time do the heavy lifting. That's exactly how I turned a betrayal into a victory. Quietly, patiently, and powerfully.